I want to tell you a story, and I'm sharing it because a lot of hiring leaders have lived some version of it. A few years ago, I was working with a VP of engineering at a mid-sized company. We'll call him Marcus. Marcus was sharp, experienced, and genuinely committed to building a diverse, high-performing team. He wasn't the kind of leader who made careless decisions, but he had a pattern. Every time he hired for a senior role, the person he chose was polished, charismatic, and confident in the interview. And about half the time, these hires struggled in the role within a year. Meanwhile, candidates he passed on, the ones he described as a little flat or not quite the right energy, kept landing at competitors and thriving. So I dug into his interview process and the pattern was obvious. Marcus was making his real decision in the first 60 seconds. Everything that happened after was just confirmation. If someone walked in with strong energy and a firm handshake and a confident opener, Marcus mentally stamped them as leadership material before he even asked them a technical question. And here's the thing. He had no idea he was doing it. He thought he was being objective. He thought he was evaluating skills and experience, but the psychology was running the show the entire time. And that's not a character flaw. That's just how the human brain works. Once you understand it, you can start making better hiring decisions. Let me be real with you. Before the candidate even walks into the room, your brain has already started forming impressions. You saw their resume, the companies they've worked at, the titles they've held. Those signals are already shaping your expectations before a single word is spoken, which means the interview doesn't actually start when they sit down. It starts the moment you read their resume. Let's talk about the science behind this. I'm going to share 5 psychological principles that influence nearly every hiring decision you make. I'll give you a practical move to counteract it. So the first one, the primacy effect. The primacy effect says the first piece of information you receive about someone carries more weight than everything that follows. In interviews, that means the candidate's greeting, posture, and first answer sets an anchor in your brain. And if that anchor is positive, you're going to spend the rest of the interview looking for evidence that's confirming it. If it's negative, you start looking for reasons to stay skeptical. Either way, you're no longer evaluating objectively. This is why 2 candidates with identical qualifications can receive completely different evaluations from the same interviewer. One nailed the first 30 seconds, the other didn't. Here's the practical takeaway. Use a structured interview guide. Each question should have a rating scale. When we build scorecards for clients, we evaluate answers on scope, low, medium, or high, and then we assign a numeric rating from 1 to 5. The key rule is this. Do not total any candidate score until the interview is finished, and take notes during the conversation. Evaluate after. When you force yourself to rate evidence instead of impressions, your brain stops hiring on vibes. Principle number 2, thin slicing. Psychologist Nalini Ambady studied something called thin slicing. It's the brain's ability to draw conclusions from extremely small slices of behavior. In one study, people watched 10-second silent clips of teachers and predicted end-of-semester student evaluations with surprising accuracy. Your brain does the same thing in interviews. In the first few moments, you're reading body language, tone, and facial expressions, and you're forming a judgment about competence and likability before they've said anything meaningful. Most of this happens below conscious awareness. So what I want you to do is acknowledge that thin slicing is happening. You can't turn it off, but you can create a buffer. Start every interview with 2 to 3 minutes of low stakes conversation. Let the candidates settle in. Let your initial impression form, and then consciously set it aside before real evaluation begins. Awareness is your best defense. Principle number 3, the halo effect. The halo effect happens when one strong positive trait colors everything else. Confidence, warmth, strong communication. If a candidate appears polished in the first minute, interviewers often assume they're also more competent, organized, and leadership ready. Even before they've proven any of that, the reverse is just as dangerous. A nervous or soft-spoken candidate can get mentally downgraded across the board, even if their skills and track record are exceptional. This is how companies lose great hires. Not because they weren't qualified, because they didn't pass a 60-second personality test that had nothing to do with the actual job. Here's what to do. Ask yourself after every interview, am I rating this person's skills or their presentation? If you can't point to a specific evidence for a competency score, you're probably riding the halo. Separate interview performance from job performance. They are not the same thing. Principle number 4, nonverbal bias. Research consistently shows nonverbal signals, eye contact, tone, posture, facial expressions, strongly influence interviewer evaluation. The problem is we treat these signals as universal. Strong eye contact means confidence. Firm handshake means leadership. Warm smile means culture fit. But those assumptions aren't always accurate. Eye contact norms vary across cultures. Some people are naturally quiet but brilliant operators. Neurodivergent candidates may present differently while bringing you exactly the skills you need. When you judge competence through nonverbal style, you risk filtering out talent that simply communicates different. What strong interviews do is build awareness in your interview panel. Before interviews begin, remind the team, we're evaluating what they say, not how they're saying it. And if someone says, I just didn't get a good vibe, ask for specifics because vibes aren't evidence. Principle number 5, cognitive load. Here's something that most hiring leaders don't realize. When a candidate gives a long answer, your brain doesn't store all of it. According to cognitive load theory, you typically remember the beginning, the end, and maybe one vivid detail. Everything else gets dropped. That means candidates who answer concisely and clearly are easier to process. Meanwhile, someone with deeper experience who rambles may get labeled unfocused simply because your brain couldn't retain their explanation. Here's the move. Don't confuse clarity with capability. If a candidate seems scattered, ask follow-up questions, probe deeper. Give them another chance to land the point. Great interviewers don't just listen, they dig. Principle number 6, rebound bias. Let me add one more scenario that happens all the time. A candidate starts the interview rough. Maybe they're nervous. Maybe their first answer isn't great, but 10 minutes later, they settle in and start giving thoughtful, detailed answers. Here's the problem. Because of the primacy effect, many interviewers never update their impression. The candidate recovered, but the interviewer never did. So here's what to do. If a candidate improves during the interview, acknowledge it. Ask follow-up questions. Give them room to demonstrate their thinking. Great interviewers evaluate the whole conversation, not just the opening moment. Let's go back to Marcus. Once we identified what was happening in his hiring process, we made 3 changes. First, we introduced a structured scorecard. Every interview rated candidates on 4 defined competencies and provided evidence for each score. Second, we added a cooling off rule. No one discussed their impressions until every scorecard was submitted. That prevented senior leaders from unintentionally anchoring the group discussion. And third, we trained the team on halo effect and primacy bias so they could recognize them during recaps. And within 2 quarters, Marcus's team reduced early turnover by 35%. They also hired 2 candidates they would have previously passed on, both who became top performers within 6 months. Same pipeline, same roles, different process. And the research supports this. Studies on the primacy effect consistently show information is remembered and weighted more heavily. Research on the halo effect demonstrates how one strong impression can inflate ratings across unrelated competencies. And structured interviews have repeatedly been shown to be far more predictive of job performance than unstructured ones. When you reduce bias in evaluation, hiring accuracy improves. So let me bring this all together for you. First impressions in hiring are not a feature. They're a bug. They feel like instinct, but they're really bias wearing a professional outfit. Today, you learned 5 principles influencing your hiring decisions: primacy effect, thin slicing, halo effect, nonverbal bias, and cognitive load, and rebound bias. So here's your homework. Before your next interview, create a structured scorecard with 4 competencies relevant to the role. Rate each one independently. Don't discuss impressions with the interview panel until every scorecard is submitted. And that single change will improve hiring accuracy more than any new sourcing tool or job board. Because the truth is this: most companies don't have a talent shortage. They have a first impression problem, and now you know how to fix it. If this resonated and you found it valuable, share it with another leader who's serious about building stronger teams. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. We release new insights every week to help you hire smarter and lead stronger. And if you're ready to fill a critical role or strengthen your leadership pipeline, visit talentq.net, where exceptional companies meet exceptional people. I'm Renee Fry, and this has been Building Your High Performing Team. Cheers for now. See you in the next one.